morning, Canada. Welcome back to another episode of Question Period, everybody. This was postponed and postponed and postponed. Oh my goodness, we were supposed to come live on Monday, and then they're like, nah, Tuesday. The King's here. And then they're like, King's still here. Let's do it Wednesday. So here we are. The live stream has been rescheduled time and time again, but we are finally back. December 17th. You know, that's the date that we last saw each other, December 17th, believe it or not. The reason I know that off the top of my hand is because December 18th, I packed up the truck and came down to this RV to spend Christmas, vacation, Christmas holidays with my family. So, yeah, it's been a minute. But today's going to be pretty interesting because there's a lot of familiar faces and there's a lot of not so familiar faces, and there's a lot of weirdness going on with Parliament right now. Mark Carney is going to make his debut today, but don't get used to seeing him on Wednesdays. So in the past, I just want to make sure that we're all good here with the audio and the video. Can we just get a thumbs up by people that are watching? Is everything good? All right. I think we're good. In the past, you've got Mondays. I'm going to wait till I get some thumbs up down in the comments here, because we got to wipe the dust off the old YouTube channel, you know? All good? People are saying all good? All right. So in the past, Mondays have been the first day back after a weekend. So they're a little boring. Tuesdays are not as boring, but it's just the second day of the week. Thursdays, we're getting closer to the weekend. And Fridays has been always the B team. So Pierre, Poilievre, Andrew Scheer, front runners on the Conservative Party, even on the Liberal side, like Justin Trudeau, wouldn't show up on Fridays. It would be the B team, right? Well, I left out Wednesdays because on Wednesdays, it was always Party Leader Day. That means that the leader of the opposition, so Pierre Poilievre, Jagmeet Singh, Yves-François Poutine, Elizabeth May, and the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau were all able to openly debate on Wednesdays. And that was an opportunity for transparency. Now, that's not a real thing. That's not a real Parliament thing. That was a thing that was put in place by Justin Trudeau, believe it or not. Ripley's. Mark Carney just took that out. So Wednesdays is no longer leader versus leader day. It was kind of the most exciting part of the week in terms of Canadian politics, because you got to see the leaders duke it out in debate. But that is no longer a thing. So even though we're seeing Mark Carney today do his debut on a Wednesday, don't get used to seeing him next Wednesday. I would say don't get used to seeing him at all. Ever, really. I think that this is part of his strategy to make politics boring again. So yeah, that part of Question Period of House of Commons kind of sucks. It's going to take some getting used to. It's going to take some getting used to seeing a lot of different faces, and some faces that didn't win their election, some faces that retired. It's going to be weird seeing Pierre Poilievre's seat empty or filled by Andrew Scheer. But don't worry, because we're all going through this weird journey together. So welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another live stream, everybody. Before we get into it, I do want to encourage you all to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It does really help grow the channel. And without further ado, let's get into some of the news. There's a lot of news that's happened. For those that haven't caught up on any of the recent news, I've got a bunch of stuff to fill the time between now and Question Period. So let's take a look, shall we?
Two of the royal visit, certainly a powerful reminder of Canada's sovereignty. With the world watching, the King delivering the speech from the throne, Wellington, a sea of white and red during that military parade. The King and Queen receiving a 21-gun salute while a military band played God Save the King. The King then met with members of the 100-person Guard of Honor from the 3rd Battalion of the Royal Canadian Regiment.
Do you know how much money this cost us? I think, if I'm not mistaken, this costs Canadian taxpayers, I think, over $2 million to have the king come in and hang out and play charades, dress up with our prime minister. That's a lot of money, man. $2 million for a weekend.
The throne. CTV's Stefan Keys joins us with more on the content of that speech delivered to open the 45th session of Parliament. Steph.
Patricia, so far the feedback on the King's words have been mixed. There are some groups taking issue with the throne speech for not hitting on issues that matter to them. But overall, most feel pleased by the tone of friendship and hints of sovereignty when it came to references from Canada's national anthem. The King walking into the Senate while a vocalist led the way in singing "God Save the King." It was a full house to welcome the royals. And again, while the speech itself touched on the ruling party's agenda, talking about the economy and projects to bolster it, words like this may have meant the most to the average Canadian.
Many Canadians are feeling anxious and worried about the drastically changing world around them. Fundamental change is always unsettling. Yet this moment is also an incredible opportunity, an opportunity for renewal, an opportunity to think big and to act bigger, an opportunity for Canada to embark on the largest transformation of its economy since the Second World War.
Seated at the foot of the throne, Prime Minister Mark Carney, the King also noting that Canada is facing challenges that are unprecedented in our lifetimes. Reaction wasn't free from backlash, of course. Political opposition came out swinging afterward. Conservative leader Pierre poilievre saying commitments to build pipelines and repeal a slate of laws from the previous Liberal government were absent from the speech, and the interim NDP leader also saying it was full of big platitudes. Patricia.
All right, CTV's Stefan Keys live for us tonight. Thank you.
Am I the only Canadian that just doesn't really care about the king? I mean, I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I just mean that in a way that who cares? Like, why are we still so tied at the hip to that system, yet still try to brand ourselves as a sovereign country? But we need a member of the royal family to come and solidify our new prime minister's prime ministerialship. Like, it's just weird. It's just bizarre. I feel like it's mostly a lot of older folk that really respect the kingship and the queenship and the royal family and just still hold on to that. But a lot of younger, and I could be wrong, maybe you're older and you're like, hey man, I don't feel that way. But a lot of younger folk just don't give a crap at all about the kings and the queens and the royal family. It's all just weird. We just want to live our lives. We don't want to pledge allegiance to none of that stuff. But anyways, that was just one piece of news here. Next up, we've got Trump's comments about the 51st state with the Iron Dome. Sorry, the Golden Dome.
Well, the U.S. president did not respond directly to today's throne speech, but did post this online after. On Truth Social, Trump wrote, Canada very much wants to be part of our fabulous Golden Dome system. It will cost 61 billion U.S. dollars, equivalent to more than 84 billion Canadian, if they remain a separate but unequal nation. Adding it will be $0 if they become our cherished 51st state. Trump ended with, they are considering the offer. Mark Carney's office was quick to respond, writing, Prime Minister has been clear at every opportunity, including in his conversations with President Trump, that Canada is an independent, sovereign nation, and it will remain one.
Oh, smokes. There you go. It's going to remain.
Is the world.
Oopsie. We're going to remain a sovereign nation, right? Yet we're still hooked on to the kings and queens. It's just so bizarre. Oh, yeah. Well, it doesn't just end there. It actually expands a little bit more. And it really feels like we're heading towards a trajectory of Mark Carney selling us out to some capacity. Whether that's the 51st state, whether that's something different, I don't know. But let's take a look here at the longer piece of news.
Lots to discuss with CTV's political commentator, Scott Reid. Scott, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Another day of firsts for Prime Minister Carney. His first question period. What sort of tone do you expect he will set?
Well, you would expect he would keep the same tone that we see from him usually, which is that, he sort of gives very direct, unadorned, non-flowery replies that are very focused and factual. It'll be interesting because the rhythm of question period is so different than, say, for example, when he's engaging with journalists. Because with journalists, he tends to take his time. He'll sort of give substantive answers. He'll walk people through the logic of what he's thinking. He loves to number things. Well, I have three things to say in response to that, Marcia. Let me begin with the third one, then I'll come to the second and the first. The rhythm of question period doesn't permit that. So it'll be interesting to see how he adapts his style for the circumstance. And we also know he can get sharp with people when he thinks a question is stupid. And I guarantee you, he will get plenty of stupid questions in question period.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to suffer fools. Okay, we have to talk about this most recent development from Trump, once again, almost sounding like he's willing to make a deal with Canada that if they want to become the 51st state, if we want to become the 51st state, that we don't have to pay for the protection from the Golden Dome. However, if we don't, then it's going to cost $61 billion. What do you make of this right on the heels of the King's speech yesterday emphasizing our sovereignty?
Yeah, I think that's it. I don't think it was an accident that this came out last night. I remember this distant period, when was it? I think it was Sunday, when the U.S. ambassador told Vashi that nobody in the United States, including the president, was talking about 51st state, and yet here we are with a big dollop of it again, only a couple days later.
It's funny because Mark Carney did an interview with the bald guy from CBC. That interview aired, and simultaneously, that's when Trump posted on Truth Social about the 51st state. And during that interview, he was asked about the 51st state comments and how they haven't heard anything about it anytime recently and how it's completely changed and that was a thing of the past. And then Trump says the 51st state comments simultaneously. It's honestly genius. The guy is just he's a magician, right? He's just so funny with the comedic timing of everything. Not that I'm on board with the 51st state stuff. I'm just on board with the prime minister completely shitting on the president completely shitting on our prime minister because he's a liberal. I like that piece.
I think that the president pays close attention to King Charles and to what's happening. Claimed he was watching the leaders' debates during our election campaign. So I think we're seeing the projection of a bruised ego. There's lots of underlining Canada as an independent sovereign nation, our traditions as something very distinct from the United States were on full display yesterday with the King's presence, with Parliament, with a speech from the throne, and of course with the language about the true north, strong and free. So I think this is just a reflex outburst of ego and silliness. Bullies are insecure, and I read that as insecurity, saying, you could be a 51st state, you ought to be a 51st state, best deal you could ever get. And this Golden Dome fantasy, and it is a fantasy, let's be clear, is just the example that he's drawing upon.
Finally.
Golden Dome fantasy. So this guy, who's a political analyst, is saying that it's a fantasy for Canada to invest in our missile defense system. He didn't say the 51st state is a fantasy. He said the Golden Dome is a fantasy. Like, this is what's wrong with these people. They don't see the long-term threat or the potential of that threat eventually coming here in Canada. Liberals think that we live in this utopia place where everything is great and nothing bad can ever touch our soil because all the bad people are on the other side of the pond. Nah, man, ballistic missiles can go in outer space now, and they can fly in orbit, and they can come down wherever they want on Earth. In fact, Canada is so vulnerable of an attack that it's actually pathetic. It actually is. You can have people come from the north or even the west coast right through the freaking Haida Gwaii or right through Vancouver Island. We got no defense at all. We got nothing. We got no emergency response. It's insane. So yeah, no, this isn't a fantasy for the Golden Dome. It's a necessity. And I don't see how it's only going to cost us $61 billion. That's insane. We've given Ukraine more money than that. But apparently $61 billion covers missiles around our entire country. No. 600 million. Put 600 million, for crying out loud. $600 billion. I think that we should be putting $600 billion into our missile defense system, not $60 billion. Add another zero.
I have to ask you on a lighter note about Justin Trudeau's footwear. It's been making some headlines. Yeah, I think we have a photo of it. We can show everyone. A lot of people were critical of his choice. They thought it was far too casual to wear when meeting the king. He's wearing some green sneakers. What do you make of it, Scott?
Yeah. Buddy, who cares about the footwear? Who cares? You know what I wear every day? Honestly, good for him. You know what I wear every day? These rubber Birkenstocks. That's what I would have showed up in. Heck, I even showed up at the legislature in BC wearing that. No, good for him for wearing that. Good for him. I'm on team casual sneakers.
Yeah, you know what? I think there's less to this than meets the eye. He's no longer the prime minister. He was kind of given the bums rush. You know, people made it clear they didn't want him. What did we talk about for the past 4 months? How politicians and political leaders and everyone else can be the un-Trudeau. I think if the guy wants to wear green sneakers to the throne speech, fill your boots, so to speak. I don't think he cares, and I don't think we should care either.
Fill your sneakers. All right, Scott Reid for us this morning. Good to see you as always.
Yeah, that's crazy. Why is Trudeau still, like, I get that he showed up to the King's throne speech or whatever the heck it's called. But why is he in the news for literally just showing up with sneakers? He's not a member of parliament. He's not a politician. He's just a regular guy now. At least he wore his suit. I don't even own a suit. I refuse to wear a suit. I don't even want to be buried in a suit. I want to be buried in my sandals. Like, this is crazy. This is crazy that we're talking about Trudeau's footwear. Oh, my goodness, man. It was with the socks. It was with the planking. Now it's with his shoes. It just doesn't end. It doesn't end. But at least him making the rounds back in the news is not in a negative way. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's not adding a scandal. Almost a sandal, but it was a shoe. And to him, I say, good for you, man. Good for you. Like, get out of our lives. Go live your life. Let the adults try to, fix the mess that you've made, or they're going to make it worse. But at least it wasn't like some, scandal erupted or whatever. He's just wearing shoes. So funny, haha, funny, haha. All right, let's take a look here. We got a new piece of news from Trump. So Trump is, let me read this correctly. Trump administration halts new appointments for foreign student visas. Yeah, that's a thing that you're allowed to do, and it's not racist. Imagine a leader who sees that there's too many foreign students in their country and says, you know what? We're just going to halt it. We're going to halt all new appointments for foreign student visas. That's pretty cool. In fact, that's something that Jamil Jivani, conservative MP, not so new guy, has recently said as well, that he wants to put an end to the temporary foreign worker program. Now, the media and liberals are going to try to tell you that that's racist and you can't discriminate against people from other countries. They automatically associate foreign students, foreign workers with people that are of a different color. Has nothing to do with color. Has to do with our jobs, and our schools should be prioritized for Canadian-born citizens. Doesn't matter what color you are. It doesn't matter what color you are. You could be any color. You're a Canadian-born citizen. Great, you get top priority over the picks. Once all that's done, then we start to bring in immigration, targeted immigration. But the politicians and the media want you to think that you're crazy for thinking that way. But the president says otherwise. Let's take a look.
The Trump administration appears to be putting up a new hurdle for Canadians who want to study at U.S. universities. The State Department is ordering U.S. embassies to stop processing new student visa applications. Richard Madden is in Washington. Just last week, Richard, if memory serves, you were telling us about U.S. President Trump's threats to ban foreign students at Harvard. What is this latest development?
Yeah, good morning, Heather. This is the latest escalation. As you noted, this sweeping order was signed by U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Tuesday, telling U.S. consulates and embassies to pause all foreign student applications until further guidance, according to diplomatic cables seen by several media outlets here. Now, the White House and America's Ivy League schools continue to be in this deadlock position, this escalating fight. The administration believes that foreign students are mostly to blame blame for the mass protests on university campuses, the unrest, the encampments, and they blame elite liberal universities, especially Harvard, for allowing this to happen and for anti-Semitism to flourish. Now, for context, this new directive comes just days after a judge temporarily paused President Trump's order blocking Harvard from accepting foreign students, as you noted. Now, Trump since escalated this battle against Harvard by threatening to pull more than $100 million in federal research grants and eliminate its tax-free status. Now, a Harvard task force recently found evidence of bullying and intimidation of some Jewish students on its campus, but the university says the president is motivated by personal vendetta and retaliation, all because the university refused to comply with his demands to audit the viewpoints of the faculty and staff and to surrender the conduct records of its students. Take a listen.
The president is engaged in an unprecedented personal vendetta against the university as opposed to addressing any serious problem. And here's the thing. This is not merely hurting Harvard, not merely hurting 7,000 international students, but it literally hurts hundreds of millions of Americans who benefit from serious research in this country and people around the world who benefit from the work that we do.
Now, have a huge impact on its bottom lines. But Trump says Harvard and other Ivy League schools are prioritizing raking in tuition cash from foreign students while denying Americans from attending. Take a listen to President Trump.
They're at 31%, but they refuse to tell us who the people are. We want to know who the people. Now, a lot of the foreign students we wouldn't have a problem with. I'm not going to have a problem with foreign students, but it shouldn't be 31%. It's too much because we have Americans that want to go there and to other places, and they can't go there.
Now, there have been some theories of late as to why President Trump continues to target Harvard. And the White House has since knocked down these, what it calls completely false theories, that Trump's vendetta is because the school rejected his son Barron from attending. Now, the First Lady's office said in a statement overnight that Barron didn't apply. That said, this is something definitely to watch because this could not only affect potential students applying from Canada, but from around the world as well.
Richard, foreign students who want to go to those U.S. universities are going to face more vetting over their social media feeds and posts as well. This is all part of the same story. Tell us more about that.
Yeah.
Hold on, was that just regular students or was that just foreign students?
U.S. universities are going to face more. Richard, foreign students who want to go to those U.S. universities.
Hey, you know what? That's amazing. I'm on board with that. We should be doing the same thing. We should, if you're spewing anti-American or if you're coming to Canada anti-Canadian rhetoric on social media and you're a foreign student, get the hell out of here. No, seriously, get out of here. Like, you don't. You deserve the right of free speech, but not of free consequences, right? If you're a foreign student and you want to come to our country and take a seat in a class or in a school potentially away from a Canadian-born citizen. I know they're talking about America, but I like to attach myself to American policies and wish, through wishful thinking, that Canada can follow suit and that we can start to do a little bit of that too, right? That would be incredible. That's incredible to really monitor the social media posts of people that you're letting in, not just through immigration, like foreign worker program or people immigrating to the country, but the students as well, because that's a big loophole. Students don't even get. Did you know this? In Canada, students don't even get. They don't get like security checks when they come to Canada. It doesn't exist. You could actually be a bad actor, like a terrorist, and get in as a student in Canada. Bit of a loophole.
Are going to face more vetting over their social media feeds and posts as well. This is all part of the same story. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, this is a big one. The State Department in that cable says it could also review the social media history of foreign students, and that move could severely slow down processing and really hurt university enrollment ahead of the next academic year this fall. Now, many State Department officials have reportedly complained privately that the language of what is acceptable of free speech or not is vague at best. One questioned if posting a Palestinian flag on Instagram is grounds for extra scrutiny or outright refusal. Now, other advocacy groups question if the State Department has the time or the taxpayer dollars to conduct this social media vetting. So this order comes as potential students from around the world start looking at their options abroad. So this continued uncertainty could damage the reputations of America's Ivy League universities as valued institutions and these elite schools to attend.
Canada should be following suit, like I said, ladies and gentlemen, like I said. All right. How's the audio now? Are we back on track? Are we good? Is it fixed? I just want to make sure that we got a bunch of thumbs up here before we continue. I think that we're good to go. I believe that we are, but we're just going to wait and see. This is going to be an incredible day, man. Lots of eyes on Mark Carney today. Lots of eyes on Mark Carney. It sucks that Pierre's not in the house. It says not fixed. Sounds good. People are saying people are saying good. All right, awesome. Well, got to pay the bills somehow, ladies and gentlemen. Got to pay the bills somehow. Right here. I will be right back after today's sponsor. This video is brought to you by today's sponsor, Private Internet Access. If you're fed up with government censorship specifically around the news, then boy oh boy do I have the solution for you. Private Internet Access is my go-to VPN. It's a way of cloaking yourself and shielding yourself online so that you can browse the internet anonymously. Not only does it unlock censored news here in Canada, but it's also a way to get content from other streaming platforms such as Disney Plus, Hulu, even Netflix. The best part is you can use it from unlimited amount of devices. One subscription protects unlimited amount of devices at the same time. You can also change your IP address to more than 91 countries around the world. Now that Parliament has resumed, you're gonna start to see a massive uptick in the Canadian news cycle, especially with the debates. Once Pierre Poilievre wins his by-election, he's gonna be back to debating Mark Carney, and it would be a real shame if you just weren't able to access that news because of this dictatorship government. If you use my link down below in the description or the pinned comment below, you'll get yourself 83% off private internet access today. Alternatively, you can scan the QR code on the screen. Thank you, Private Internet Access, for sponsoring today's video. All right, welcome back, everybody. People are still saying that the audio is crackled, so we're going to try and solve it right now. But if it doesn't work, then I might restart the stream. All right. I'm going to take a look on the back end here. In the meantime, we're going to take a look at what is going on with, for those who didn't see it, we're going to take a look at the interview that Mark Carney did with the bald guy from CBC.
Prime Minister Carney, thank you for meeting with us today. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for having me, David.
I want to start, if I can, with a moment near the end of the speech that drew some sustained applause when the King said, as the anthem reminds us, the true north is indeed strong and free. Very subtle. Was that for a Canadian audience or for an American one?
Well, I think everything is for Canadians first and foremost. Speech from the throne for setting out a bold, ambitious plan for Canada, the government's plan. And I think a clear message there that we are strong. We are free, and it's time to reinforce those strengths and those freedoms.
How much progress do you think you've made since the Oval Office meeting with President Trump on resolving some of the issues around trade, in particular the sectoral tariffs?
Well, I would term it this way, since we're at historic moments, epoch-making, to quote the speech from the throne. So to be slightly Churchillian, it was the end of the beginning. The Oval Office was the end of the beginning, reestablishing sovereign-to-sovereign dialogue, much more constructive productive engagement on some of the big issues on both security and economics. We've had fairly intensive discussions since then. Minister LeBlanc, for example, and our ambassador were down for a number of meetings last week. Conversations continue. We've got more that we need to do before we're satisfied that we have a partnership that is in Canada's
But how would you characterize it? I mean, have you moved closer? I mean, he's going to be in Canada on around the 15th of June for the G7. Yep. Could you have a deal by then, a deal by Canada Day, or does this sort of thing that moves into maybe, the CUSMA review time period, which Mexico is now saying could start in September?
I don't think it's in either of our nation's interest for it to drag out that long. I think the issues are getting a sharper relief. But we're going to take as much as time as necessary to get the right deal for Canada, but no more.
Okay, but so do you agree?
Like the 51st state, baby. Like the 51st state. Here it comes.
With the Mexican economy minister, I think, said today, end of September is when CUSMA starts. Is that the period between now and then that you think you can have this resolved with the United States?
I have a slightly different view. I didn't see the specific comments, but the actual CUSMA review period starts in 2026. So, look, there are specific issues, the border, fentanyl, tariffs. Canada's made tremendous progress. We're securing our border. You heard the speech from the throne doing even more, another 1,000 border CBSA agents, border services agents, another 1,000 RCMP personnel, a series of other measures which will exhaust our interview time if I go through them to secure the border. So we're making huge progress. The amount of fentanyl going across our border is down 90%. We're less than 0.1% of the U.S. imports of that horrible drug. And the bigger issue now is northbound drugs and guns. So look, we've made a lot of progress. We think we should be moving off of those tariffs. The U.S. should be moving off those tariffs. We are stronger together in autos. The auto pact's been in place my entire life. I'm not that young anymore, so it just shows you the value of being together. Same with steel and aluminum and the other trade challenges. So we want to make direct progress on those issues before we have the broader review of USMCA.
On the relationship, though, overall, Prime Minister, I mean, there seems to have been progress on at least the tax.
Without question, there is progress, David.
For sure, but on the recognition of sovereignty, right? The president said he still likes the idea of the 51st state, but he's not going to talk about it. Ambassador Hoekstra says
the idea of me playing in the NHL, David, but it's not going to.
So this is so funny because right when he said this interview aired live. This was a live stream on CBC. Right after that was said, Trump went to Truth Social, and that's when he made the comment about how we wouldn't have to pay for the Golden Dome if we became the 51st state, and Canada is taking it very seriously. Very, very seriously. It's just hilarious. Hilarious timing, man. And then what the heck is up with this comment about Mark Carney? I would have liked to play in the NHL. Like, what does that have to do with anything? It's just so weird. So weird.
Yeah, absolutely fair. But he still talks about getting the auto sector, the president does. He still has the tariffs against the auto sector and talks about making it economically unviable to make cars in Canada and to move it to the United States. So the economic threat still persists.
One of the issues for the United States and by extension for Canada is, can the U.S. auto sector be viable and truly competitive versus Asian competition, particularly Chinese competition, but broader global competition? Can it be viable if it's just an American auto sector, U.S. auto sector? The answer is no. And Canadian, we have a great auto sector, great auto parts sector, and that integration of the auto sector is part of what will make North America competitive, and that's what we're working towards.
The line you said with some frequency during the election was he wants to break us so he can own us. Do you still believe that's true?
I think the president, I won't look into his soul, but the president is recognizing, as others are, just how strong and free Canada is. And so if you look at the speech from the throne today, as you did, this is about investing in Canada. This is about building Canada, about making one Canadian economy out of 13. It's about nation-building projects. Each of those and those together give us much, much more than could ever be taken away by trade action. This is a confident country moving forward, and it's an exciting time.
Look, I do want to go through some of the specific measures from the speech from the throne, but just one more on the United States, because when you said the process of deepening integration is over, Is that a permanent state of affairs in your view? Is that something about the changing nature of America as a country, or is it specific to this period under President Trump?
Well, I'd roll back 40 years since we're looking at the broader sweep of history, maybe even a little more. A steady process of integrating the auto sector, as I mentioned when I was first born, then moving to broader goods, services, financial services, even some people talking as little as a few years ago about having a customs union with the United States, greater freedom of movement of labor. That's not going to happen. That reliance, we are seeing the danger of over-reliance on the United States economically and also from a security perspective. So we will, as I said the other day, we will cooperate where necessary, when it's in both of our interests very clearly, but we won't necessarily cooperate. So we, as a confident country with an ambitious plan, we look outwards. We look to Europe. We look to Asia. We look to new partners that we're going to deepen with. And that's a big element of what we're laying out in the speech.
So when you look to Europe on the security and defense arrangements, is that to sort of augment the ones that exist with the United States or to reduce the reliance there? Is it a hedge or a replacement?
Well, it's both. Diversification depends. Look, and I say it's both. I'm not trying to avoid the question or be clever. The point is we need to do much more to secure our borders, to secure our Arctic, to secure Canada. So we're going to need to spend more. We recognize that. Now we're going to do it in a way that is in the best interest of Canada, with partners on which we can rely, get best value for money, but also make more of that investment here in Canada, so we're growing jobs and livelihoods in our own country. You know this. Some may not have followed as closely. We're spending over 75 cents on every dollar of capital spend for defense goes to the United States. Right. That's not smart. What's better if...
At least he recognizes it. I mean, I can appreciate that. At least he recognizes how little amount of money we actually put into our investments, into our defense. I mean, that's a step in the right direction.
We spend more at home, if we have diversified partnerships. Look, part of what's been happening in the last few months since I became Prime Minister is a number of conversations of increasing specificity with our major European partners so that we become defense partners with them, that we become part of a very big build-out of their defense industrial base, which will have big benefits for jobs here in Canada. We're making great progress on that, and by Canada Day, we'd like to see something concrete there.
Okay, but you also...
Canada Day is going to be an important date in our calendar.
What do you want to see on Canada Day specifically, sort of on the defense side of things?
So you see a couple of things by Canada Day will happen. First, we have...
Tax cut and free trade, right?
Well, we have a tax cut, middle-class tax cut, and, first item that we put on the table as government following being elected is go straight to affordability, that tax cut for 22 million Canadian taxpayers, up to $840 a year for a two-income family. So real money for people delivered on July 1st. That's the first bill. In fact, the Minister of Finance tabled the Ways and Means today in Parliament.
But on defense,
two things. One, we have a summit, EU-Canada summit, just before the NATO summit, third week of June. At the NATO summit, NATO partners are going to be asked to spend more, to do more, for mutual protection. We're going to participate in that. But part of the way we want to participate in that is with new partners, with European partners, yes, with the United States, yes, on our own, in a way that's best for Canada. So look for some agreement and some progress in both of those.
But Mark Rutte said, I believe it was yesterday, that they think the target, forget 3.5%, they want to go maybe as high as 5%. Now, that feels like an aggregate number maybe for the alliance in general, but Canada is not at 2% and won't be till at least 2027, maybe a little bit later.
Oh my goodness, dude. We can't be waiting that long to hit the bare minimum 2%. We really gotta be above 3 or 4%. Like immediately. We can't afford to wait that long. We can't wait to be reactive to a situation that's ongoing. That's not how the world works. You don't plan. You don't make a plan after you've been punched in the face. You have a plan to either avoid getting hit in the face, or a plan on how you're going to react after getting hit in the face. But you don't wait till you get hit in the face to then start building something. You don't wait to get bombarded or bombed by another country to then say, you know what, now's a great time to invest in our defense system. No, man, you do it now. You do it before it gets to that point. As a preventative measure, or as a freaking to be a goalie for your own country. He should know about this. We should be pumping way more. We should be doubling the amount of investments we're putting into our military right off the hop. Right off the hop.
Reasonably commit to something even beyond 2 at this point?
I think there's a couple of things. One is we start with results. What is necessary to secure our country? First and foremost, our borders, the Arctic, our sovereignty. Then what do we need to do with our partners in NATO, for a safer world that has an impact on Canada, and that would include our commitments in Ukraine. What do we need to do? Then what could it cost? Then how do we get those costs down, and how do we make sure those expenditures benefit Canada as much as possible? I'm not a fan of picking an arbitrary number and then trying to figure out how to spend up to it.
Well,
all of that said, sorry, David, is we are definitely going to have to spend more. Mm-hmm. We are going to have to spend more sooner. That's one of the reasons why we will have a fall budget, not a budget tomorrow, because we're part of these deeper discussions on the defense side.
Okay, I want to dive into sort of the 7 priorities.
Even the budget is so greasy, man. Like, they've had time to put together a budget, and it's not a budget to debate on in September or in the fall. It's a budget that they're just announcing, this is what we're doing. That's insane. We haven't seen this. Oh my goodness, man. If it was all going to the right places, I wouldn't even have an issue with it. Like, if our government was spending money appropriately in all the right places, not that I don't view myself as the deemer of all knowing things. Like, of course, I have a bias on what I would like to see that money being spent on. Everybody does. But there's definitely a right to be a little skeptical with how liberals spend money. Right? We've seen that for 10 freaking years. So just giving them this unchecked, bank account here, put your name on it, and it's the money is left blank for you to write a check to however much you want, to whomever you want, to whatever department. That's a little scary. It doesn't feel like a democracy. Now, don't get me wrong. If the shoe were on the other foot, and if the Conservatives had that type of power, and if they won based off of their cost of platform and their campaign, we'd be putting way more money into the military. I wouldn't even blink my eyes at it. Say, go for it. You guys have said you're going to put all the money in the right places that Canada needs. Go for it. So yeah, I have my bias, of course. Everybody does.
In your mandate letter, what appears to be a mission-driven approach to government, I would take from that. The list is limited, but each one of them is quite broad in terms of what fits in there. But I want to ask specifically about housing. And now, I know you said you don't want to force down the price of existing houses. You want to reduce the cost, increase the affordability of new builds, but the GST cut at the front end, driving down development fees to make it more affordable while driving up wages. So buying power, it makes it easier to own a home. Yeah. So, like, a simple measure of that is the price to income ratio. Yeah. And over the last 20 years, that has just gotten impossibly unbearable in a lot of big markets. Like 20 years ago in Toronto, it was 5 to 6 times an average salary. Now it's like 11 to 12. Yeah. What sort of a ratio are you aiming for with this policy? What's an affordability standard for
it comes back into, it comes into several things. Now you've asked a very complicated question and you've layered it down. And the bottom line is for Canadians, can I get a mortgage? Can I afford the mortgage payments and I can buy the house? Part of what's shifted is the length of those mortgages and the cost of those mortgages. So there's multiple factors that have to happen here. One is we've got to get take-home pay up for Canadians. The first easiest way to do that is to cut taxes now. We're cutting that middle-class tax cut. That's why that's the first thing we're doing. Cut taxes on first-time home buyers, younger Canadians. They're buying a new home, saving up to $50,000. In fact, in some markets, Toronto would be an example, more than $50,000 off the price of a home. That's all, the big money, obviously. Then we need to get supply up in order to get that. At the same time, and we have a very ambitious plan, you'll see that roll out more into the fall setting of Parliament for that to roll out, to get supply up, double the rate of home building, all while growing the economy, because what we need to see is incomes grow. So you combine all of that with mortgage terms, you've got to pull collectively, we've got to get those numbers back, those ratios you quoted, back back towards those that you started with.
But what's the
5 to 7.
horizon here? I bought my first house at 28. So if you're a 28-year-old now looking to buy a home, it's tough depending on where you are. Like, how old will you be before it gets to that affordability level?
Look, there is no. Here's an insight. There's no monolithic houses. There's different types of houses, different types of housing markets. It's a segmented market. First point. Second point is, are we building houses more cheaply? The answer is we have to build those houses more cheaply, and there's several ways to do that. Again, cutting the GST on housing, that's one way to make the house more cheaper, sorry. The second thing is to cut development charges. So we committed in the platform, we will cut development charges in half. Development charges flow through, that's a fancy word for building the infrastructure for houses. It flows through to the end price. So we're looking at another savings on the order of magnitude of that $30,000, $50,000 off the price of houses if we do it and matched, or as we do it and matched by the provinces. Third way you do it is you change how you build houses. So much more effectively, the productivity in the housing sector in Canada has not grown for a quarter century over the period of time that you quote those figures. We've got to get that down. You can do it at scale. You can do it with prefab, modular.
There
you can
it
do
is.
it using Canadian timber, Canadian technology. That's what we want to catalyze.
Right.
Last point, David. We're going to focus first and foremost on deeply affordable housing. We have a homelessness problem in this country. I think everybody knows it. There's multiple causes. One way to address it is actually to have deeply affordable housing. We're going to focus in on that. That is a role for government. It's a role for the federal government to catalyze and then move out across the spectrum to affordable housing, mainstream affordable housing that's going to drive.
I don't think there's inherently a problem with modular homes and prefab homes. Like, I think that it's half decent. You can get some good ones, depending what part of the country you're in. Like the West Coast, the climate's half decent all year round, right? And so it makes sense. The wear and tear on it won't be that bad. But it becomes a little concerning when the Prime Minister, who's pushing for said modular and prefab homes, owns a company or is on the board of a company and is invested in a company that literally makes prefab and modular homes. Like, it's just a little weird. We just dealt with 10 years of scandals, and I'm not going to be gaslit again and believe that it's just a coincidence and that he's not going to try to line his pockets with his own products. But if you have skepticism, or if you're skeptical around this, you have every freaking right to be, because we just dealt with this for quite some time. And it also turns out that Carney's not wearing a Canadian flag on his lapel. He's actually wearing the Order of the Canada pin, which is the highest awarded status for a Canadian. In fact, he was awarded this from Stephen Harper. It's kind of... Why not just wear a Canadian flag pin? Just weird vibes around Carney. Weird vibes.
This is a medium term. This is like 5, 7, 8 years. Is that what we're talking about?
We're more ambitious than that, but you have years, not weeks. Mm-hmm. And you know what? One of the things that's going to characterize this government is being straight with people. Okay, there are things we can do in the short. First off, let's be straight. It's a sunny day. It's beautiful out there. We are in a crisis. We have to get moving. We have to get moving on these major projects. We have to get moving on building one Canadian economy. That is why the First Ministers, the Premiers, and myself are meeting next Sunday in Saskatoon, because we have to get moving. That's why a number of the Premiers are here in Ottawa today. That's why some of the Western Premiers have banded together on some big ideas that we're really looking forward to getting behind. And on and on. So we got to move, but the idea that, I'm not saying you suggested, that we can just snap our fingers and all of a sudden housing in this country, a housing crisis will be solved overnight. No, that's not going to happen. But that's not a reason to wait. We're going to get going.
Well, it's the same thing with the major projects, right? And
it's kind of funny, too, because in order to get prefab homes to remote areas of the country, the only way that you can do it is actually by using diesel fuel to tow them. You can't really do it with gas. It just doesn't have the same type of power and strength that diesel has. You can look this up if you'd like. So that's insane. The carbon footprint on prefab homes is actually really, really high, which is contradictory to their climate agenda, right? Like, again, it's rules for thee, not for ye type of thing. Like, hey, everybody, you guys shouldn't be driving your cars around, but I'm going to hop in my private jet and fly around the world. Again, a little weird. Just full of doublespeak.
And you set me up perfectly for where I wanted to go, was looking ahead to Saskatoon with the meeting with appreciate it. You know, it's time to build. It applies to houses, projects, and the relationships. The premiers all have a list of national projects that have big price tags and require federal approval and federal money. I mean, are we going to see
federal approval? I'm not sure about federal money. Yeah.
I think they might think it involves federal money in some cases, right?
Well, so here's if I may. Do you want to finish your? Sorry.
Well, no, I just wonder, are we going to see specific projects out of Saskatoon? These are the 2 or 3 priorities for this year, next year? What are we going to see in terms of moving this?
What we're signaling in a bold, ambitious plan that's part of the speech from the throne is that we need to move on these nation-building projects. So projects that bring Canada together, projects that diversify our economy, projects that help us export to new markets and really move this economy forward. So yes, the ask of provinces, the ask of the private sector is, which projects do you have that reach those criteria? What we're going to do is fast-track the approval, truly fast-track the approval of those projects. And we are going to name specific projects to which these fast-track approvals apply so that the country can get moving. Now, part of what we're going to do collectively, in effect, we're going to have a competition with projects. Some projects are good ideas, but they're not ready. Others are ready, but they're bad ideas. Some projects can purely be driven by private sector interests if the federal government and provincial governments can make approvals quickly, so investors can have the uncertainty. Other projects may provide such benefits to our country, in terms of diversification as an example, and jobs, that it may make sense for there to be some support in some way by the federal and provincial governments. But we look at all of that, we designate the ones we want to, we collectively want to move forward. And when I say we very much include Indigenous partners, Indigenous peoples, because this free, prior, and informed consent applies to all of this and will apply to virtually every project we'll have an Indigenous component.
Okay, I know you've got to go, but I need to build on the project question. I need to ask you about Alberta, and I need to ask you about the oil and gas sector, because I know you said you want to create an energy superpower, clean and conventional energy. A pipeline is a possibility.
Yeah, let's see what he's got to say about the pipeline.
And, Alberta would say 1 at minimum is what is needed, maybe 3 to the north, to the east, and to the west. This is what the Premier said. Is that a reasonable expectation for the Premier of Alberta? And the frustration over this, and you know as someone who grew up in Edmonton, it's driving a lot of the resentment to the national government of Alberta. So as Prime Minister, how do you confront that?
I think there's a couple of things. One is, let's recognize a few facts in terms of pipelines that have been built to Tidewater and projects opening up, whether it's TMX, whether it's Cedar LNG, and beyond. There's a series of LNG projects. More can be done, more should be done, and from our perspective, more will be done. So we will be moving through this process to make these types of projects possible. Now, we don't begin and end the conversation. It's remarkable in some circles, this conversation starts and ends with pipelines.
But that is become politically, right?
No, it's not. No, that is not what it's become politically. That is not what it's become for Canada. Canada as a nation. Mm-hmm. Canadians want, yes, they want energy pipelines that make sense. They also want grid connections between our clean grids. They want actually less carbon, so they want carbon capture and storage pathways project to move forward. They want broader corridors, for example, Gray's Point in Nunavut, that open up whole swaths of the country to new trade. They want critical minerals so that we are sovereign in the most important components of the future. All of those things are possible. And the more we're doing more of them, the more likely this is going to succeed. That's why these meetings and this process is so important. That's why the legislation that we will put forward in coming days, is so ambitious. We are in a crisis. We can control our destiny. We are a brave, bold, confident nation. We are the true north, strong and free. but freedom is something you earn every day, and that strength is something we need to reinforce.
But how do you confront the separatist sentiment that is there in Alberta? There's a possibility of a referendum next year. I mean,
look,
how do you approach it?
This is the greatest country in the world, and this is a country that works. It's a government that's committed to working with Canadians across the country. And I know you're pressed for time now. You're pressed for time. One of us, we're both pressed for time. I got things to do. We got projects to build. But you know, I was born just north of the oil sands. I grew up just south of the oil sands. When I was born, the oil sands was a concept. And it was the ingenuity of many Albertan engineers and entrepreneurs, and the partnership between the federal government and the provincial government that made the oil sands what they are. This is what we need today. We need all of the actors, private sector, we need research, we need scientists, we need the federal and provincial governments working together. And what's going to happen, and I do feel that this spirit is building, is that we're going to see the projects we're talking about aren't just contained within one province. So it needs multiple provinces, it needs Indigenous partners. And the only way to get it, in my view, is to recognize what a moment that we are in, the need for ambition, the need to work together. And I tell you, David, you saw some of this, I'm sure, in your coverage. I traveled across this great country over the course of the last several months. That's what Canadians want. We're going to go to the wall to get it.
Oh my goodness, man. It's just, I feel like we're heading down the path of another 10 years of something that we just freaking don't want. You know what I'm saying? It's just yuck. That's the best way I can describe Mark Carney. It's just yuck. Ladies and gentlemen, the time has come. The time has come. The House is opening up very, very soon. This is very exciting. I want to see a bunch of W's down in the chat. But before we switch over to the stream of House of Commons, House of Canada, we got to pay the bills, ladies and gentlemen. We got to pay the bills. We got to pay the bills. This video is brought to you by today's sponsor, Private Internet Access. If you're fed up with government censorship specifically around the news, then boy, oh boy, do I have the solution for you. Private Internet Access is my go-to VPN. It's a way of cloaking yourself and shielding yourself online so that you can browse the internet anonymously. Not only does it unlock censored news here in Canada, but it's also a way to get content from other streaming platforms, such as Disney+, Hulu, even Netflix. The best part is you can use it from unlimited amount of devices. One subscription protects unlimited amount of devices at the same time. You can also change your IP address to more than 91 countries around the world. Now that Parliament has resumed, you're gonna start to see a massive uptick in the Canadian news cycle, especially with the debates. Once Pierre Poilievre wins his by-election, he's gonna be back to debating Mark Carney, and it would be a real shame if you just weren't able to access that news because of this dictatorship government. If you use my link down below in the description or the pinned comment below, you'll get yourself 83% off private internet access today. Alternatively, you can scan the QR code on the screen. Thank you, Private Internet Access, for sponsoring today's video. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the time has come. The time has come. We are now waiting for the House to start. As you can see right here, nothing. We got nothing yet, all right? But it will begin very short. Oh! Hey! Did y'all know I was a magician? Look at that. All right. They're singing "Oh Canada." I believe it's copyrighted, so we're not going to listen to it. But what we are going to see is how much coffee I brought to the table. So you see I got this mug right here. I also got my French press. We are ready. We are locked and loaded. December 17th, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get some W's down in the chat. I don't even know how to do this. Anyone remember how I do the intro? Can somebody write down how I do my intro when they speak? Because I don't even remember. I'm lucky I even remembered the login to this account. December 17th. December 17th is the last time we did a stream here. Oh my goodness. How do I do my intros when they go to talk? This is wild. Oh mon dieu. Oh mon dieu. Everybody ready for this? Let's get hyped. Let's see some W's. Let's see some Canada flags down in the chat. Come on, ladies and gentlemen. Come on. You know the drill. Let's get hyped. Let's get hyped. Usually I include Pierre. Yeah, I know. I know. Oral questions. Yeah. Okay. We're good. We're locked in.
The honourable member from Cumberland, Colchester.
Okay, I think I remember.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 5 years ago, Portapique, Nova Scotia faced an unimaginable tragedy. But what happened next in my riding is an important lesson in what resilience looks like.
Who the fuck is this?
The people of Portapique didn't just survive, they organized. Working with the Rotary Club of Truro, they said, we will not be defined by our darkest hours. Through generosity of donors from across Canada and support from all levels of government, they transformed tragedy into community. On June 1st, we celebrate the first anniversary of the opening of the Portapique Community Centre. Proof that when communities unite, we can create spaces that honor our past while building toward a happier, healthier future. I thank them for their example, and I thank you for the time.
The honourable member for Edmonton Manning.
The overall plan for Canada to become the world's leading energy superpower is just an empty promise. Where's the investment in infrastructure? Where's the commitment to repeal the job-killing liberal anti-energy laws from the last parliament? Albertans wants to know if this government understands how important our clean, ethical fossil fuels are to the Canadian economy and to the world. Is the throne speech just rhetoric, or are the Liberals finally willing to face reality? The demand for Alberta products is there, but the delivery method is lacking. The previous Prime Minister told those who's looking to buy Canadians oil and gas that they really did not want to buy it. Will the new Prime Minister commit to a west-east pipeline to move Alberta oil and gas to the Canadian and European markets? Albertans wants to know. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Hey, if you haven't yet already, I'd appreciate if you guys smash the like button.
The honourable member for Whitby.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today for the first time in the 45th Parliament with a deep sense of gratitude and humility. To the people of Whitby, thank you for placing your trust in me for a third time. It's been the honor of my life to serve since 2019, and I remain committed more than ever to delivering results that improve the lives of people in our community. To the incredible volunteers and supporters who powered our campaign, thank you so very much for your time, your energy, and your heart, which made the difference in our success. And to my incredible family, my wife Suze, daughters Alexis and Brooke, my mother-in-law Verna, and my nephew Ryan, thank you for your unwavering support and all your sacrifice.
Thanks to my cat.
I couldn't do this without you. Now, there are many challenges ahead, Mr. Speaker, but our priorities are clear. Protect Canada's sovereignty, address affordability challenges, keep communities safe, and build the strongest economy in the G7. I look forward to contributing to the hard-working team that will deliver results for Canadians.
Member for Parry Sound, Muskoka.
Mr. Speaker, I'm humbled to rise today to thank the incredible people of Parry Sound, Muskoka, who have placed their trust in me to represent them here in this House for the third time. This seat, of course, it doesn't belong to me, it belongs to the people I serve. From the majestic French River in the north to the historic Trent Severn in the south, from the rugged shores of Georgian Bay to the heights of Algonquin Park, it is an honor to serve the people who call our magnificent region home. But you know, throughout the election, I heard from countless people about the issues that are important to them: cost of living, safety in our streets, protecting hunters' rights, and of course, the outrageous price of homes. And today, I want to reassure all the people of Parry Sound, Muskoka that I am here to advocate for you and for your voice to be heard in this House, your House of Commons. You have placed your trust in me, and I promise to earn that trust every single day. Thank you.
The honourable member for Argenteuil, La Petite Nation. Mr. Speaker, today I'm proud to highlight the exceptional talent of 3 young people from my riding who distinguished themselves at the Quebec Skills and Technology Olympics held in Quebec City from the 7th to the 10th of May 2025. In cooking, Théolie Lajoie won the gold medal, demonstrating a remarkable mastery of her art. In industrial mechanics, Mathis Roson also won a gold medal, demonstrating his ingenuity and rigor.
I'm feeling nervous.
And in pastry making, Geneviève de Milo won the bronze medal, highlighting her promising talent in this demanding profession. These three medalists are students at CFP Innovation Outaouais, an institution in my riding that trains the next generation with passion and excellence. I warmly congratulate them for their hard work, their perseverance, and their success. They are inspiration to the entire community, and we are extremely proud of them. Bravo, Théolie, Mathis, and Geneviève.
The honourable member for Battle River Crowfoot.
In the last Parliament, I introduced a private member's bill, something that will again be reintroduced soon. This bill, an act to recognize a national livestock brand as a symbol of Canada, aims to acknowledge and promote the role of farmers, ranchers, and the whole of the agriculture and animal husbandry sector, plus so much of our history, like pioneers, Indigenous peoples, resource industries like mining and the oil patch, hunters, trappers, and anyone else who played a role in building our country from coast to coast to coast. As I plan to step down as soon as possible, I hope to see this conversation on this important issue continue. This livestock brand is a heraldic symbol added to the national inventory of Canadian symbols, would be a fitting way to recognize a huge part of our country's history. At a time when national unity is at stake, this bill would be important to show that Western and frontier culture played and still plays a prominent role in the building of Canada. Conservatives get this? I hope the whole House will join in support of this bill.
The honourable member for Milton East, Halton Hills South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I share the story of the grades 4 and 5 classes at Glen Williams Public School in Georgetown, Ontario, and that of their dedicated teachers and parents who are actually visiting Ottawa today. These teachers assign their students to craft a letter sharing their vision for the future of Canada. The final product was so inspirational that it garnered national attention and a visit from the Prime Minister. I thank teachers across Canada who bring this type of civic education to their schools. I'm sure we can all agree that education is the foundation of a strong, united, compassionate country. Canada's youth should be able to look to their leaders to set a guiding example. It's certainly a reminder for me, Mr. Speaker, and I hope to my member colleagues to always lead with respect, integrity, and purpose, because the children are watching.
The honourable member for Berthier-Masquis-Longet. In a few days, Mr. Speaker, it will be World Milk Day. So let's raise a glass to celebrate this simple yet essential food. Milk has stood the test of time and cultures, and it is much more than just a simple drink. It is a treasure trove of benefits. It nourishes our bodies, strengthens our bones, and complements our morning cereal and sweet desserts in the evening. World Milk Day is also an opportunity to celebrate the commitment of the producers who every single day with passion and perseverance provide us with this rich resource. It is a day to reflect upon how milk reaches our tables, thanks to the work that is invisible to most of us, but absolutely essential. So today, let us think about that glass of milk and the supply management system that supports it, just as it supports our farmers who get up every morning and keep our regions dynamic and vibrant. Cheers and happy World Milk Day to all.
The honourable member for
Man, it's weird not seeing Greg Fergus, too.
Mr. Speaker, 100 years ago today, Albert Christian was born in Waterloo, Ontario. At age 17, he was in the local barber shop and overheard two older guys talking about heading to London, where they were going to enlist in the Canadian Army. Bert asked if he could tag along, which he did. Bert passed all the tests, exams, and interviewed, and was enlisted, despite having lied about his age. Bert served in France, Belgium, Holland, and Germany with the Essex Scottish Regiment. It was in Germany that he fought on the front lines in the Hochwald Forest against the Nazis. Bert had three brothers brothers that served in the war as well. All 4 brothers returned home from the war alive and well. Bert met another 4 brothers in Europe that were from Manitoulin Island who also returned home safe and sound. They invited Bert to join them when they returned to Canada, and he did. That is where he met his future wife, Maureen. At the age of 63, Bert retired to Owen Sound to be close to family. Bert had 2 children, David and Rick, and his 2 grandchildren, Candace and Corey. One saying Bert always says, old soldiers never die, they just fade away. And he still says that he would do it all again. Happy 100th birthday, Bert. Pro Patria.
All right, folks, if you haven't got already, I'd like to encourage you guys to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel.
It's an honor to be elected, and I'm very grateful to the residents of Richmond East, Steveston, for placing their trust in me once again to serve as their voice in this House. I dedicate this statement in memory of a childhood friend, Suki Baya, who sadly passed during the election. One election issue raised in our community was the urgent need for mental wellness and wraparound supports. May is Mental Health Awareness Month in Canada, and policymakers ought to be aware of the challenges Canadians face. According to the Canadian Mental Health Association, the rate of suicide for Canadian men is 3 times higher than for women. However, women are hospitalized for self-harm twice as often as men. As the 45th Parliament begins its work, I call on all levels of government to come together and invest in mental health as a cornerstone of building healthy, resilient, and thriving communities for all Canadians.
The honourable member for York Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a privilege to rise in the House of Commons for the first time. I'm honored to serve the beautiful riding of York Centre, located in the great city of Toronto. It's also home to one of Canada's largest Jewish communities, to which I belong. Speaker, an unprecedented wave of hate crimes is terrorizing Canada's Jewish community. Under this Liberal government, hate crimes are up 250%, and anti-Semitic hate crimes are up over 400%. A Jewish school located a mile away from my North York home has been shot at 3 times. Enough is enough. Conservatives stand with Canada's Jewish community for its right to exist, to worship, and to live free from violence and intimidation. Last Sunday, over 50,000 Jewish Canadians proudly marched through York Centre on the Walk with Israel. We're grateful to the Toronto Police for keeping us safe, but we demand of this Liberal government to end the incitement to violence we hear on Canada's streets and take all necessary measures to protect the Jewish community. I know that my Conservative colleagues will fight for the safety of Jews all across Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Nah, they don't care at all.
The honourable member for Mississauga, Erin Mills.
Congratulations, Mr. Speaker, on your election, and through you, welcome to all members of Parliament to this House. I look forward to working together as Canadians, serving Canadians. I also want to thank the people of Mississauga, Erin Mills, to my phenomenal team and volunteers for once again placing their trust in me. It's an honor to continue representing our beautiful community. Canadians have chosen a government led by our Prime Minister that's ready to meet the challenges ahead. Global instability, threats to sovereignty, and urgent pressures on housing and affordability. Our government has laid out a clear path, building a strong, inclusive economy, strengthening Canada's global role, and deepening ties with our allies. We're focused on delivering real results, creating opportunity, removing interprovincial trade barriers to build one strong Canadian economy. Let's get to work. Thank you.
Why weren't Liberals talking about this last year, interprovincial trade barriers?
I wish my first intervention in the House on behalf of the people of Nanaimo Ladysmith was under better circumstances. But our community is in crisis. In 2024, Nanaimo lost 94 people to overdoses, more than 3 times the number in 2016 when the BC government declared the opioids crisis a public health emergency. Families are grieving. Neighborhoods feel the weight of this tragedy. The safe supply experiment has failed. People are suffering. Crime is up. It has truly been a lost decade. Conservatives know that it is time to invest in treatment, to recriminalize hard drugs like fentanyl, and to provide real mental health supports, not taxpayer drugs, not taxpayer-funded drugs that fuel addiction. It's time time for common sense solutions that restore hope and bring our loved ones home drug-free.
The honourable member for Halifax.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je prends la parole.
I stand today, 1 month after my election, to thank the people of Halifax for having granted me their trust. It's the support of my community that has allowed me to access the House of Commons.
A special place, known to the Mi'kmaq who cared for the land for millennia as Chibuktuk, or Great Harbour. It's one of Canada's oldest cities. It's home to Black communities predating Confederation and is the birthplace of responsible government. Today, Halifax is a hub of research, innovation, and technology. We're home to Canada's ocean supercluster, and we lead in climate action, shipbuilding, and global trade. We're a vibrant and fast-growing maritime city, and our greatest strength has always been our people. Haligonians are resilient, caring, and driven. As I take my seat in the chamber, I am honored to be their champion in Ottawa, and I'm ready to get to work.
You all ready for the intro?
Honourable member for Elmwood, Transcona.
Come on.
Mr. Speaker, as I rise today, I want to thank my family, friends, volunteers, and the hardworking people of Elmwood, Transcona who place their trust in me and the Conservative Party. These are the Canadians who get up early, put on their boots, and build the country we love. I've been in their boots 18 years as a construction electrician, proud union member, and vice president of IBW Local 2085. The NDP and Liberals have abandoned unions. They have driven up inflation, housing costs, and taxes while supporting union-busting tactics. That's why more rank-and-file union members are turning to the Conservatives, many for the first time. Just weeks ago, we received support from local unions like the ILA, the UBC, IBEW, UA, Boilermakers, LIUNA, and many, many more. Conservatives are the party of blue-collar workers. We will keep working to earn and trust of Canadian workers and delivering strong, prosperous future they deserve.
The honourable member for Carleton.
Oh, boo! Fanjoy. Boo! Boo! Put some L's in the chat. Boo! Boo! Standing O because they kept Pierre's head off.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, dear colleagues.
To thank the people of Carleton for the confidence they've. I will never take the honour of representing them for granted. I also wish to thank the hundreds of volunteers who believed that together we could. From Stittsville to Constance Bay, Riverside South to Metcalfe, Greeley to Richmond, and Manotick to Osgood, and all points in between, together we did. Now it's time to embrace every moment in this House and in all of our ridings to build a future in which all Canadians can thrive in the true north, strong and free.
Fuck that guy. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go.
Oral questions.
Okay, so Honourable Interim Leader of the Opposition, Andrew Scheer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I would like to welcome the Prime Minister to his first official question period. This is where democracy lives, and this is where we provide rigorous scrutiny on every word he says and every dollar he spends on behalf of Canadians. Now, let's talk about those words and dollars. During the election campaign, it was elbows up as he put retaliatory tariffs on the U.S. Then secretly, he dropped those tariffs to effectively zero. But he didn't stop there. He told Canadians that the government would collect $20 billion in revenue from those tariffs and use it to cost his platform. Now that those tariffs are going to bring in $0, two quick questions. Why wasn't he honest with Canadians during the election? And how's he going to make up the shortfall? Is he going to borrow it, print it, or tax it?
Oh my goodness.
Honourable Prime Minister.
Here he goes. First question.
Mr. Speaker, may I first thank my constituents from Nepean for giving me the honour of and could you also indulge me to say how is to see you in the Speaker's chair, and I trust that you're operating under the period of grace that will not be accorded to me. Appropriately, as the Leader of the Opposition just said. Mr. Speaker, our tariffs have maximum impact on the United States, minimum impact on Canada, and we are dedicating all the revenues from those tariffs to supporting the workers and businesses affected by the unjustified American actions.
He's got no idea what he just stepped into.
Well, he didn't take long to pick up old Liberal habits of not being able to answer questions. But since the election, Canadians have been inundated with grand rhetoric and pretty speeches from this Liberal Party, but they are still suffering under all those policies. Household debt up at record levels, number of people who can't pay their mortgages increasing, food bank use continuing to rise. Now TD Bank is forecasting a recession with hundreds of thousands of lost jobs. The PM said undoing the damage of the last 10 years would require great speed, but he's not going to table a budget for 6 months. If he's the man with the plan and the guy you hire in a crisis, why won't he table a budget before he goes on summer vacation?
You're right. Honorable Prime Minister.
Oh, I miss this.
Position's very busy. Didn't have a chance to study closely the 100-day plan of the former member from Ottawa, Carleton, which did not include a budget. Our plan includes legislating for one Canadian economy and nation-building projects immediately to grow this economy, and we expect the support from all in this House.
Brutal.
They must be really afraid to come clean with Canadians if they're going to punt it off into the fall. But, Mr. Speaker, with the throne speech yesterday, Liberals have effectively admitted that it was their policies that caused the suffering for Canadians. Their reckless borrowing and massive deficits caused the inflation. The carbon tax drove up prices and drove away investment. And their anti-development bills chased jobs out of Canada. Now, the Prime Minister is claiming that somehow the Liberals have changed. Well, he has a chance to prove it to Canadians. If he's serious, will he tell Canadians that pipelines are part of his values by repealing Bill C-69, the No More Pipelines bill?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Put some W's down in the chat for Scheer.
Canada's new government is acting immediately.
It's Mr. Speaker to you.
To grow this economy. I just made my maiden speech in this House. Canada's new government, Mr. Speaker, is acting immediately to grow this economy. One Canadian economy out of 13. Nation-building projects. One project office. Working with the provinces to cooperate. We expect the support for the members opposite.
Carney is so screwed. He's got no idea what he's doing.
The Honourable Member for
Charlebourg. This is going to be so good.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister campaigned on the slogan, the man with a plan, but the problem is that he's refusing to tell Canadians what that plan is. A budget would have been a plan. The Liberals are going to go over a year without tabling a budget. That's never happened since the 60s. But what we do know is that this Prime Minister is determined to spend even more than Justin Trudeau, and he's refusing to tell Canadians how he intends to spend their money. What is the Prime Minister trying to hide about this Liberal government's finances? Mr. Speaker, the new Canadian government has a plan. It has a daring plan, an ambitious plan to bring together the Canadian economy, have one economy instead of 13, and in order to create new projects to build this great nation. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles, Mr. Speaker, what I'm seeing in front of me is the same ministers, the same government that's been in place for 10 years. We know the result of 10 years of this Liberal government. And what we have now, yes, is a new Prime Minister, but a Prime Minister with no plan. He said he had one, but he doesn't want to table a budget because he knows perfectly well that his plan is disastrous and that our public finances are in a terrible state. Will this Prime Minister commit to tabling a budget before the summer? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This government will act immediately to cut taxes on the middle class by hundreds of dollars for the average family. We will also reduce or remove GST on new home builds. We have a plan, and we will be bringing in that plan immediately.
Nah, they got no plan. Or else they would have shown the plan.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, a few weeks ago, we were having an election campaign. And during the election campaign, we heard a lot about the threats of Donald Trump. Now, this government brought in retaliatory tariffs against Donald Trump, but then they discreetly took away those tariffs during the campaign. But they didn't say anything about it because they wanted to make sure that Canadians would stay scared. But now we have a $20 billion budget hole, and that's on top of a budget that already had a heavy deficit. Could we finally get a new budget so that we can understand what's going on with our finances? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The member across the way must have been referring to the Conservative platform when he talked about the $20 billion deficit. Well, that's all right. Well, Mr. Speaker, we have counter tariffs against the Americans, and they will have maximum impact on the United States while having minimum impact in Canada. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker,
François Poutine.
The topic that set off this election campaign and the entire basis of the Liberal strategy was the trade and tariff and even the annexation crisis that we've been seeing with Donald Trump. But despite this, yesterday's throne speech, read by a foreign monarch, did not mention trade. It did not mention tariffs. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm wondering how it is that this terrible crisis that got our Prime Minister elected, how did it just get forgotten in the throne speech? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, for those who were there at the throne speech, for those who were there, we heard about transformation in the throne speech, the transformation of the global trade system, which is a crisis for Canada, a security crisis for Canada. We have a daring plan in order to respond to this crisis.
Where's Freeland?
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Well, the Prime Minister will perhaps agree that some things are clearer when you read them than when you hear them. Now, the King's speech was incredibly centralizing, so centralizing that I think even Justin Trudeau must have felt embarrassed. We heard about a single economy, one Canadian economy, without asking anyone what they thought of that, even though the National Assembly of Quebec unanimously denounced that notion. It seems that for the Prime Minister, Canada is just a country where the provinces are like the branches of a bank that is headquartered in Toronto. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Oh, wow.
Mr. Speaker, we are in the middle of an economic crisis. This is a time for unity. Yes, this crisis was created by the Americans, Mr. Speaker. This is a time for unity. This is why my ministers and I, or rather, the premiers and I will meet, the premiers of Quebec and the premiers of all the provinces will meet this weekend in Saskatoon. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Well, it's a little bit like a military staff meeting where the general will give orders and expect everyone else to obey. Now, on another subject, let's talk about the climate crisis. That's an issue too, you know. It's causing all sorts of... But yesterday, in the throne speech, we heard nothing about the climate. Instead, measures are being projected that will actually harm the climate and the environment. Does the Prime Minister recognize the existence of climate change? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, yes, of course, the climate crisis exists. And it's a major challenge facing our nation. And that's why Canada needs to become an energy superpower, both in traditional and green energy.
If it were that big of an issue, then why would we go with traditional
Alberta, at the G7,
energy?
next month, we will be holding a discussion on forest fires.
Lakeland.
Yesterday, the PM said Canadians shouldn't focus on pipelines. We'll tell that straight to the hundreds of thousands of workers who lost their jobs when these Liberals killed pipelines, LNG exports to allies, and capped Canadian oil and gas. Last year, 98% of Canadian crude went to the U.S., Canada's biggest customer and competitor, due to these Liberals. But in April, the PM said he won't repeal their No New Pipelines, Never Build Anything unlawful Bill C-69 and ignores premiers and businesses. When will he repeal Bill C-69?
Yeah, like a firecracker, man.
Minister for Natural Resources. To rise in the House for the first time. I wish to thank the people of Markham Thornhill for their trust. I'm also thinking of my
Come on, get on with it, Tim.
I'm also thinking of my family who have supported me from day one and my parents who I wish were still with us. It's time to get many projects built here in Canada. We will cut red tape, fast-track projects, and approve them within 2 years. We will create jobs for Canadians and build the strongest economy in the G7.
Let's throw some W's down in the chat, for the Conservatives.
Liberals killed 16 major energy projects and $176 billion in options to make Canada affordable, safe, self-reliant, and united. And half these ministers, they're the same. These Liberals must kill C-69, but they can't get their story straight. 2 weeks ago, the Culture Minister said Canada doesn't need more pipelines. Last week, the Energy Minister talked a good game, but just like right now, won't commit to concrete action. How can Canadians believe anything they say? Will they repeal Bill C-69? Yes or no? Yeah!
The Honourable Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
The Prime Minister has been clear.
What a boring
yes, we will
guy.
support new pipelines if there is consensus in Canada for them. With American tariffs threatening our economy and threatening our sovereignty, we must protect our energy security. There is no question energy is Canada's power. It will help us build the strongest economy in the G7, guide the world in the right direction, and help us be strong at the negotiating table. We will win this trade war. We will make Canada an energy superpower.
Oh, yeah. If you don't put me to sleep first.
Over 9 years, the Liberals' anti-energy laws have weakened our country to the benefit of the United States.
That's right.
Canadian oil and gas piped to the United States provides jobs and revenues for Americans, but not for Canadians. But get this, it's at a discount. Canada's energy potential has been stalled by anti-energy laws from the Liberal government for close to a decade. Will the Prime Minister scrap the job-killing and economy-killing energy production cap?
Yes!
The Honourable Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Oh, here comes Waldo.
Mr. Speaker, while my Conservative colleagues are interested in playing politics, I'm interested
It's literally the job. Politics is literally the fucking job, bro.
Consensus. We will make Canada an energy superpower in both conventional and clean energy by cutting red tape, fast-tracking projects, and approving them within 2 years. This means creating new jobs and growing the economy. We can make Canada strong and protect ourselves from American tariffs if we work together with Indigenous partners, industry, and workers, but also...
The Honourable Member...
He has no free will. He doesn't know how to talk without a piece of paper.
Time is up.
Even the BCNDP have removed their decarbonization policies for LNG export facilities.
Yeah.
This is not
David
politics.
did.
Even Canada's parliamentary budget officer forecasts a $20.5 billion reduction in GDP and potential job loss of 54,000 full-time jobs under this energy production cap.
Right.
Canada's loss is America's gain.
That's right. Yes. Here.
Again, to the Prime Minister. Will the Prime Minister scrap the Canadian job-killing and Canadian economy-killing energy production cap, yes or no?
Yeah.
climate change.
Very good.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank the constituents of Toronto Danforth for giving me this opportunity to stand up for Canada and to build a strong Canada. To the member opposite's question, I want to be clear. If Canada wants to be an energy superpower, the Prime Minister, has stated it. It's going to be low cost, low risk, and low carbon. We're going to get projects built right across our country while making sure that we protect the environment.
The honourable member for Terranova, the Peninsula.
Mr. Speaker, it's an honor to rise here representing the hard-working people of Newfoundland and Labrador for the very first time.
You can tell where he's from, huh? Who to be the bad guy? Look at that. Prince Charming himself.
While my province of Newfoundland and Labrador has the highest unemployment rate in the country at nearly 10%, the industrial carbon tax is compromising our competitive edge and shifting our jobs abroad. Canada's energy, mining, and forestry workers are pleading to have the industrial carbon tax removed. My question is, will this Prime Minister fully repeal the industrial carbon tax to create jobs at a time we need it the most?
Man, I'm so happy that guy's in. We need that accent. That's a hard East Coast accent.
Mr. Speaker, making sure that polluters pay is a central part of moving forward and being competitive as an energy superpower. When we look at other countries around the world, they have border carbon adjustments in place. They are looking to Canada to make sure that the energy that we provide is low risk, low cost, and low carbon.
Nobody cares about low carbon. We just want to get stuff done.
London South. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Liberals claim they want to make Canada an energy superpower, but they forget it's their record over the last decade that has decimated our energy sector and kept our resources in the ground. Their oil and gas production cap will kill tens of thousands of jobs and cost our economy $20 billion. Their industrial carbon tax will cost Canadian businesses more dependent on the United States. The solution is easy. Will the Prime Minister repeal Liberals' costly anti-energy laws?
Yo, put some W's down for True North. Look at that, man. That threw me off. I forgot he even
Minister
won.
of Industry and Canadian Economic Development.
Thank you. I would like to thank first and foremost the constituents from Hunsik-Cartierville. Merci à tous les citoyens d'Hunsik-Cartierville.
That
we are in a trade war that has been launched by the U.S. And we know that hardworking Canadians are feeling the grunt of this trade war, particularly in the manufacturing sector, particularly in the auto, steel, aluminum sectors. And we continue to fight for them. That's why we will make sure that we invest in them, that we work on making sure that we attract the investments across the world while making sure that we grow the fastest economy of the G7.
The Honourable Member for
Chicoutimi.
Mr. Speaker, throughout the campaign, the Prime Minister kept...
What's going on here? We're getting hacked by Russia.
...saying that he was open to new energy projects.
Probably I got an email from him,
He never clearly said that he would repeal Bill C-69.
Shouldn't have replied to that Proton email.
A liberal anti-development bill which would prevent Quebec LNG from being restarted. We need this in order to be less dependent on the Americans. Will the Prime Minister listen to Quebec's rural regions and repeal C-69? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Well, I'm looking forward to working with my colleague at a time when we're facing the American trade war. I'm looking forward to protecting jobs both in Quebec and everywhere in Canada, especially in the aluminum sector, for example. There is aluminum in my colleague's riding. We will attract new investment. We will create jobs here and throughout the country, and we will have the strongest growth level in the G7. The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, les Patriotes Verchères. Mr. Speaker, there is a Léger poll that shows that 87% of Quebecers feel completely detached from the monarchy. And that's why the National Assembly of Quebec unanimously adopted a motion asking for all of Quebec's links with the monarchy to be abolished. In Quebec, we are Democrats,
cry.
not monarchists.
Where's the
But
NDP?
on the other hand, the Liberals, well, the first thing they did after the election was to invite the King of England to parade around at a cost to Quebecers, a cost of millions of dollars.
A W to the
Liberals
freaking
realize that the very first
translator
thing
in the
they
back.
did in
You
office
see it right
proves
there.
that they are completely disconnected from Quebecers.
W to her.
The Honourable Minister
Throw some
of
love down in the chat,
Identity
guys.
and Canadian Culture. I'd like to thank my constituents who have enabled me to be standing up here for a third consecutive mandate. And I'd also like to remind my colleagues from the Bloc that it's always the UK Crown that reads the speech, that there's nothing different there. But this time the King came to read the speech, which is an honor for many Canadians and also many Quebecers. And I'd also
W to the
like
short bus drivers,
to
too.
remind my colleagues from the Bloc
For
that
driving this
we
guy
are
to
a
his
sovereign
job.
country. Sovereignty is a concept that they should understand. Isn't that so?
We're seeing two different narratives on housing. That's what I thought.
No! What just happened?
I would like to apologize to the member for Pierre Boucher les Patriotes Verchères. Please go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Quebecers did not vote for this, Mr. Speaker. Quebecers were
New
hoping we'd get a
speaker
serious
problems, huh?
government which would table a budget to support the Quebec economy at a time when we're facing Donald Trump. But today, Quebecers are seeing that the Liberals' priority is not the budget because we don't have a budget and they don't care about supporting our economy. They're not doing anything for that. What is actually their priority is to put on a spectacle with the King of England. You know, whenever the Bloc Québécois talks about the monarchy, the Liberals say that we're ignoring the really important topics. Well, then why aren't they prioritizing important topics like the budget instead of wasting millions of dollars on royal pomp
That feels
and
like
circumstance?
when you board an
Can I get an
airplane and they
explanation
say
for
have a
this?
good flight, and you say thanks, you too.
The Honourable Minister
Someone
of
who's checking
Finance
your
and National
ticket, not
Revenue.
getting on the plane.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to start by thanking my
The
constituents for
Chihuahua.
electing me to a fourth mandate. And I intend to fulfill my mandate with conviction, humility, and passion, Mr. Speaker. And yes, we are focusing on important topics. My colleague must be asleep at the switch. The first thing we're going to do is to reduce taxes for 22 million Canadians. We should all be celebrating here today, Mr. Speaker. 22 million Canadians will see a middle-class tax cut. That was our promise, and that's what we're going to do. Together, we will build a stronger Canada.
Here we go.
Mr. Speaker, we're seeing two very different narratives on housing, one from the campaign and a very different one from the minister. The new housing minister, the former mayor from Vancouver, who let housing prices go up 179% in just 8 years, is saying something very different. The minister answered a resounding no when he was asked if home prices should come down from their record highs. If he's adamant that prices shouldn't go down, how much does he think that they should go up?
Whatever Cal in the background, Melissa Lanceman, Leslie Lewis.
Infrastructure and minister responsible for Pacific Economic Development Canada.
Merci, Monsieur Président. Et je suis honoré.
It's an honor for me to be here in the House.
Vancouver, Fraser, South Burnaby, for giving
Look
me
at
the
the fart
opportunity to
smelling
represent
face,
them
bottom
here.
left.
On the issue of affordability and affordable housing, well, first, I'm very proud to be part of a government that's committed to cutting taxes from day one here in the House.
Here, here.
I'm also looking forward to pursuing the most ambitious affordable housing plan in the history of Canada, delivering a GST
Greg Fergus is sitting back there?
and ensuring we bring the development costs down.
The honourable member for Thornhill.
The minister ought to know that the housing market is already in chaos. Sellers can't sell and buyers can't buy. It's proving out. Only 310 houses were sold across the entire GTA. That's a staggering 89% below 10-year average. Lower supply, higher prices spells more trouble for Canadians. So instead of building homes and bringing the cost down, he's actually building more bureaucracy. So we know that housing prices went up 179% when he was in charge of housing in Vancouver. How much higher are they going to get when he's in charge of housing for the entire country?
Throw some W's down for Melissa, huh? She deserves it.
For Pacific Economic Development Canada.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the member, it's not about reducing the value of an individual's home or senior's home. The member may wish to force seniors to sell their homes for less. We're going to focus on building more affordable housing and delivering a cut to the GST to first-time home buyers.
The honourable member for Parry Sound, Muskoka.
Mr. Speaker, the sale of new homes in the GTA just hit a 7th straight month of record-setting lows. Only 310 new homes were sold in the GTA in April. That's a 72% drop over last year and an 89% drop in the 10-year average, with condo sales plummeting 94%. Wow. The report warns that there will be a massive housing shortage in 2 years. Prices are too high for buyers and they're too low for sellers. So can the Prime Minister tell us what he plans to do to help the buyers that cannot afford to buy and the sellers that cannot afford to sell? Tell us what he plans to do to help the buyers that cannot afford to buy.
Such a good question.
And the sellers that cannot afford to sell.
The universe asked it twice.
L'honorable ministre des Finances et du Revenu National.
It's good to be back, and in fact, the Conservatives have not changed, Mr. Speaker. They should listen more. My colleague was very clear about what we're doing. We're eliminating GST for first-time home buyers, Mr. Speaker, in the country for houses up to $1 million. We should all celebrate, Mr. Speaker, and we expect the Conservative to support the Ways and Means motion we have put, Mr. Speaker, because this is how we can help Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
When he talks, it sounds like he's tone deaf.
Well, Mr. Speaker, tax relief is certainly welcome, and it's frankly long overdue from this government, but the meager tax cuts that they're talking about will save families $70 a month. We're dealing with families that are looking at $5,000 a month mortgages or more. Equifax is reporting that the mortgage delinquencies in Ontario are at the highest level ever recorded. They're up 70%, Mr. Speaker.
I saw that this morning.
This is not a coincidence. It's certainly not a surprise. So instead of building a third federal housing bureaucracy, why don't we just get more homes built?
Pretty simple.
The Honourable Minister of Finance and National Revenue.
Speaker, in one end, it's encouraging that we hear the Conservative will support our motion, but it's concerning to hear a member, Mr. Speaker, to really talk down a measure that will help 22 million Canadians in this country, Mr. Speaker. This is shocking.
Over his shoulder.
This is up to $840 for a family with 2 incomes, Mr. Speaker. The people in my riding and his riding are welcoming this measure, and we hope the Conservative will support us. This is how you support Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Montmorency Charlevoix.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Tout au long de ma campagne.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All throughout my campaign, I met hundreds of young people in Montmorency Charlevoix, my riding. They were completely discouraged by the exorbitant cost of housing. After years of Liberal governments, mortgage payments and down payments have doubled. According to the Canadian Real Estate
out on the House floor, man, I want this guy.
The average home price in Quebec increased by 10%. And yet, on his first day in office, the Minister of Housing told Canadians
they had to make a custom suit for him on his arms.
That is so out of touch with reality. Mr. Speaker, how can the minister look young Canadians in the eye and tell them that home prices are fine?
Holy crap.
The Honourable Minister of Finance and National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, if my colleague had been listening today, he would have heard that there is good news for Canadians. We will cut GST for first-time home buyers up to $1 million, Mr. Speaker. That can lead to savings of $50,000, Mr. Speaker. That is an incredible, exceptional measure. It will help young families. It will help young Canadians, Mr. Speaker. We made a promise, and we are keeping it.
Shore St. Margaret.
Mr. Speaker, last month voters in my riding of beautiful South Shore, St. Margaret's, voted for change. A change to address the cost of living and a change to address the cost of living, which has eroded Canada's quality of life. They voted for a change.
Her mouth is bigger than her brain, clearly.
More money in their pockets, and they voted for change that builds more affordable Canada. As we build the strongest economy in the G7, we need to ensure that we leave no Canadians behind. Mr. Speaker, my
they get dental coverage, right? You can see her bottom teeth are all yellow.
National Revenue, please share with this House how the government.
Holy smokes.
The Honourable Minister of Finance and National Revenue.
Mr. Speaker, what a great question, Mr. Speaker. I think the Conservatives should follow.
We didn't even get to hear it.
Mr. Speaker, I want to congratulate my colleague for election and for the hard work
that she's putting on behalf of the people of South Shore. St. Margaret's, Mr. Speaker, as she mentioned last month, Canadians voted for a government that has a plan to build the best economy in the G7, and that's what we're delivering, Mr. Speaker. That's what we're delivering, and we're going to address the cost of living in this country. That's why one of the very first announcements of this government, Mr. Speaker, was to cut tax for 22 million Canadians. Mr. Speaker, we should all celebrate.
The honourable member for Haldimand, Norfolk.
Liberal policies like Bill C-5 have led to a crime wave across Canada. Violent crime is up 50%. Gun violence is up 116%. Just yesterday, a drive-by shooting shook our small rural community of Cayuga. This crime wave is no accident. It is a direct result of the Liberal policies like C-5 that has ended mandatory jail time for serious gun offenses and drug crimes. Will the Prime Minister end this crime wave by repealing Trudeau's Bill C-5? Yeah.
Wow. Well said, Doctor.
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And let me just take a moment to thank the people of Scarborough-Gilbert Bruce Park for my fourth consecutive mandate. To my friend opposite, my heart goes out to those who were impacted by the violence in her community just yesterday. I want to assure her and I want to assure all Canadians that we will address issues of serious violent offenders seriously. We will make sure that we tighten up bail reform, and we will ensure that our government will always be there to protect Canadians from coast to coast to coast.
The honourable member for Haldimand, Norfolk.
Mr. Speaker, a serious issue is the will of Canadians to live in peace, which they
need
once
to turn up
did.
her microphone.
Now they live in fear because of Liberal soft-on-crime policies. Liberal policies like Bill C-5 and Bill C-75 put repeat violent offenders back on the streets, contributing to the suffering of communities across Canada. Premiers, police, legal experts, civil liberties advocates all demand change. So I ask the question one more time. Will the Prime Minister restore safe streets and repeal Bill C-5 and Bill C-75? Yes or no?
There you go. Put some W's down in the chat for Dr. Lewis, huh?
On April the 28th, Canadians gave us a mandate to ensure that our streets are safe. And since that time, we've been working together with law enforcement to work towards a safer communities across Canada. I want to just outline some of the highlights from the Chief of Police for the City of Toronto, who indicated that auto thefts, for example, have decreased by 39%, home invasions down by 42%, homicides down by 67%, and shootings down by 46%. We have a lot more work to do, Mr. Speaker, and we will work together with law enforcement to ensure the safety and security of all Canadians. Our government will always be there to protect.
The honourable member for Edmonton Gateway.
Mr. Speaker, families across Canada feel helpless because these Liberals have done nothing to stop violent crime rising across the country.
So much worse.
They stick with their ideological soft-on-crime policies, and that is why extortion gangs are targeting Canadian businesses and their families. In fact, just this month, we've seen more shootings, arson, and even a murder potentially linked to extortion. Yet Canada still has no mandatory minimum penalty for extortion. So will the Prime Minister work with Conservatives to bring in the same legislation that I brought in last Parliament to bring in tougher penalties for extortion?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Secretary of State for combating crime.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You heard it in the throne speech yesterday. It is a top priority of this new government. We are partnering with police services across this country to fight organized crime. We'll make it tougher for violent criminals to get bail. We'll impose stricter sentences for repeat offenders. We are serious. We're going to get to work, and we're going to fight crime.
We're going to fight crime.
The honourable member for Markham Unionville.
Oh, Markham, Unionville, nice.
Mr. Speaker, since 2016, nearly 50,000 Canadians have died from the opioid crisis. Over 80% of accidental opioid deaths involve fentanyl. It takes just 2 milligrams of fentanyl to kill someone. Mass fentanyl production is mass murder. but Liberal laws let the monsters who killed our people walk free. Conservatives are proposing to give mandatory life sentences for anyone involved in the trafficking, production, and distribution of over 40 milligrams of fentanyl. Will the Prime Minister crack down on fentanyl production and give life sentences for drug kingpins committing mass murder?
Here, here.
No.
Minister for Public Safety.
It needs to be addressed, man. And the Liberals are not doing an adequate job at all.
Let me just first welcome my friend opposite to the House. Fentanyl has torn every community across Canada and North America, Mr. Speaker. It's something that everyone in this House is impacted by. We're accelerating our work to crack down and dismantle the fentanyl trade and organized crime that profit from it. That's why we listed 7 cartels as terrorist entities under the criminal code. I'm working so closely with Kevin Brasso, Canada's fentanyl czar, at home and abroad, to put laser-sharp focus on dismantling fentanyl rings. We will work together in order to address this issue. Our government will always be there.
The honourable member for Brampton West.
Mr. Speaker, soft on crime, Liberal Bills C5 and C75 have unleashed crime waves in Brampton and across our country. Violent crime up 50%. Auto theft up 50%. Extortion up 400%. The out-of-touch public safety minister said during the campaign that there was nothing wrong with the bail system. Repeat offenders should be in jail, not out on bail. Does the Prime Minister agree with this minister, or does he stand with frontline officers like Peel Police to bring in bail reforms?
That's good.
Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We stand with all our frontline officers, with Peel Regional Police and all police agencies across this country. We're partnering with their services, and we're going to fight organized crime. We'll make it tougher for violent criminals to get bail, impose stricter sentences for repeat violent offenders. And the chief has reported, the chief of police for Toronto, that auto thefts have decreased by nearly 39%, home evasions down 42%, homicides down 67%, and shootings down 46%. And we'll continue to be tough on crime.
The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands.
Before taking office, the Prime Minister helped establish multi-billion-dollar investment funds that were placed in offshore tax havens. Now he's shielding those investments from public scrutiny with a blind trust that hides but doesn't remove potential conflicts of interest. Now, Canadians are lined up at food banks in record numbers. They can't pay their rent, but they are paying their taxes, and they want to know if the Prime Minister paid taxes on his investments. So can the Prime Minister, who I welcome here today, confirm that none of the investments that he placed in the blind trust were previously held in offshore tax havens?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Speaker, as you know, the Prime Minister has followed all the rules even before they were required. He'll continue complying with all the rules. Opposition members like to distract Canadians with these hypotheticals and conjured scenarios. The fact is we have a Prime Minister, a new government, hard at work at creating opportunity for Canadians, the strongest economy in the G7, and reducing taxes. The opposition don't like that so much, so they dig dirt on day one. Shame on them, Mr. Speaker. We're going to continue our work.
What the heck are you talking about, dude?
The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
Canadians don't want an explanation in how to bend over backwards to fit through ethical loopholes. They want to be reassured that after a decade of serial ethical law breaking, that they can have confidence that the Prime Minister is going above just the basic minimum standard. So the Prime Minister, again, who I welcome to the chamber, can he stand up and just assure Canadians that none of the funds that he had previously were held in offshore tax havens, and can he tell Canadians what those investments were in when he sat at his first cabinet meeting?
Well said.
Speaker, Canada has among the most stringent ethics guidelines in the world. The Prime Minister has complied with those ethics guidelines and surpassed the requirements contained in those ethics guidelines. What the Prime Minister is busy doing is not what this member is busy doing. What the Prime Minister is busy doing is creating opportunity for Canada, standing up in a trade war against the United States, reducing our taxes, building new homes, and creating the strongest economy in the G7. G7. That's what we're up to.
We are certainly not the strongest economy, and we are also not in a trade war right now.
The honourable member for Mégantic, l'Érable, Lot-Binière. Mr. Speaker, how can we know for sure that the Prime Minister is not just making more opportunities for himself? Why is the Liberal Prime Minister so reluctant to disclose to Canadians the full extent of his personal wealth? Why so many secrets? We know that just before becoming Prime Minister, he set up, for his company, Brookfield, 2 multi-billion-dollar funds in notorious known tax havens so that the company wouldn't have to pay taxes in Canada. Can the Prime Minister confirm here and now that he has no assets and no financial interests in offshore tax havens? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, it didn't take long for the Conservative question period machine to run out of material. What we're doing is creating jobs, creating a strong economy, standing strong against the United States. The Prime Minister exceeds all the requirements of the Code of Ethics, which is the most demanding of all of its kind in the world. The Conservatives, Mr. Speaker, they love to dig for dirt. Meanwhile, on this side of the House, we are creating opportunities for Canadians. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable, Lot-Binière. Well, it didn't take the Liberal government long to start doing things the exact same way that the last Liberal government did. Here's the truth. The Liberal Prime Minister seems to be taking his sweet time covering up his conflicts of interests before opening his books to Canadians. One of his first decisions as Prime Minister was to transfer assets to a blind trust.
Yeah.
And he claims that
for sure,
by magic,
a little greasy, yeah?
overnight, he will forget about all of his financial assets, as if the only ones who don't know are Canadians. Will the Prime Minister come clean and disclose all of his financial assets, as well as the conflicts of interest held in his trust? Yes or no? We need an answer now. The Honourable Government House Leader.
I can't see Mark Carney anywhere. I think he already left.
Canadians can be assured that this Parliament and our institutions are governed by the most demanding ethics code in the whole world. The Prime Minister met and even surpassed all of the Code of Ethics' requirements. If the Conservatives want to carry on like this, digging for dirt, I think electors will be disgusted. Canadian voters want us to work for them. They don't want us here slinging mud at each other. The Honourable Member for Terrebonne. Mr. Speaker, for too long, trade barriers have stifled the development of one Canadian economy. Our economic sovereignty is currently under threat. It is thus important, more important now than ever before, to promote free trade within our borders. Can the Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs and One Canadian Economy inform this House of the action our government is taking in order to protect our economic sovereignty and to build one Canadian economy? The Honourable President of the Treasury Board, U.S.-Canada Trade, Intergovernmental Affairs, and One Canadian Economy.
Dude, that's a lot of freaking titles.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank my colleague, the member for Terrebonne, for her excellent question. We recently campaigned on a commitment to build one Canadian economy, not 13 economies. By Canada Day, Mr. Speaker, we will table a bill which seeks to eliminate all federal barriers to internal trade. We also commit to working with provinces and territories in order to fast-track projects that are in the national interest. Mr. Speaker, that's how we intend to build the strongest economy in the G7.
Canada is in an economic crisis without any plan because the Liberals shut this place down for half the year to avoid accountability. And now the Prime Minister says no budget before fall. With record high food bank usage, a rise in the number of those using those food banks that are fully employed, a rise in mortgage delinquencies. TD Bank now also predicts that over 100,000 Canadian jobs will be lost due to a looming recession. Given all of this information, how is it even possible the Liberals won't table a budget this spring?
Yeah. Well said, man. the attack dogs.
I welcome the question from my colleague, Mr. Speaker. We're being very clear that there will be a budget in early fall of this year, Mr. Speaker. But in the meantime, why we should celebrate, and we just see now that the Conservatives are going to support our motion, Mr. Speaker. Now, this is good thing, Mr. Speaker. Now, Canadians will see that in this House of Commons, we need to do things for them. The first thing that we presented, that we promised and we're delivering, is a tax cut for the middle class, Mr. Speaker. 22 million Canadians will having a tax cut, Mr. Speaker. This is what we've been elected for. We're going to fight for Canadians. Every day, Mr. Speaker, is a good day to fight for Canadians.
The honourable member for Calgary East.
The Prime Minister sloganeered on a plan, yet refuses to tell anyone what that plan is. He's overseeing the longest period without a budget since the 1960s outside of COVID.
That's gross.
Uncertainty about spending and their debt that they're going to accumulate scares away investors, small businesses, and Canadians during a cost of living crisis. We know that this Prime Minister is going to spend more than Justin Trudeau. Why won't they be clear with Canadians and let them know how much more inflation and interest rates are going to go up because of all their spending?
Hear, hear.
Transparency is key. And Carney campaigned on that. But there's some W's down in the chat for the Conservatives.
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Ministre responsable de Développement économique Canada.
And Economic Development Canada for Quebec's regions.
Justified tariffs by the U.S. against Canadians are making Canadians' lives much more unaffordable. That's why we're cutting taxes. As the Minister of Finance just mentioned, this new government is cutting taxes on the middle class, making sure also that we're cutting the carbon tax and cutting the GST on first-time home buyers. We will create the strongest and fastest growing economy of the G7. This is the utmost priority of our government, and we will deliver. Thank you.
The honourable member for Newmarket Aurora.
The Prime Minister claimed being the man with a plan. Very well. Where is it? After 14 years in finance,
Another strong female
that
conservative.
if you don't know your numbers, you're out. We know the Prime Minister is committed to spending more than Justin Trudeau, but he won't even tell Canadians how much. TD reported that Canada is nearing a two-quarter recession with up to 100,000 job losses this fall. So I have one simple question. With the economic storm clouds moving in, how is it possible not to have a budget this spring?
Yeah, look at that.
The Honourable Minister of Finance and National Revenue.
Speaker, I have one simple answer. We have a plan, and it's a plan in action, Mr. Speaker. I welcome this member to the House of Commons. But the plan, Mr. Speaker, is simple. We're going to cut tax for 22 million Canadians, Mr. Speaker. And in fact, the leader of the Conservatives just said outside the House that he's going to support our plan. So that, Mr. Speaker, is a step forward. Not only we're going to do that, we're going to remove GST for first-time home buyers for a house up to $1 million. And, Mr. Speaker, we're going to remove the consumer carbon price from law, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, why is gas going up then?
For Canadian, this is building a better economy for all.
The honourable member for Labrador.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Here we go. It's an honour for me to rise in this House as a representative for a region that forms part of Canada's north, beautiful Labrador. We must never take our sovereignty and security in the Arctic for granted. As foreign threats to the regions increase and the impacts of climate change intensify, it is imperative that Canada work in close partnership with Indigenous and Northern communities. Can the Minister of Northern and Arctic Affairs inform this House on the government strategy for the region? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister for Northern Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today with a deep sense of responsibility, gratitude, and humility. I stand here as a proud Anishinaabe, Innu, and Métis woman representing Churchill, Keewatin, Nikiski
Look at
riding.
Fergus, huh?
In Ensuring a Canada that is strong and free and defending the Arctic and the people living there is a top priority for this new government. We will strengthen the presence of the Canadian Armed Forces, detect and deter early warnings with radar coverage, and invest in the necessary housing and infrastructure. And we'll do this all by working with Indigenous and Northern partners every step of the way.
The honourable member for Central Newfoundland.
Mr. Speaker, in yesterday's throne speech, the Prime Minister reaffirmed his commitment to persecute the fishing and aquaculture industries with Liberal policy to close down 30% of fishing grounds by 2030. The 30 by 30 Marine Protected Areas agenda was developed by the United Nations in conjunction with foreign activists, and this government signed it. So how can the Minister of Fisheries support shutting down the productivity of the fishing industry and the aquaculture industry that means so much to coastal communities throughout Canada, given the impact that it'll have on our very own province?
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the people of St. John's East for continuing to put their trust in me, and I also want to congratulate my colleague from across the aisle. This government continues to understand the cultural and the economic importance of the fisheries. And I can tell you that I am very humbled and proud to be responsible for this file. And I will also assure the people of Canada, and certainly my colleague across the aisle, that the fisheries remains an important ministry in the government, and I will do all that I can to ensure that harvesters, industry, and communities are protected.
The honourable member for Vancouver Kingsway.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's unemployment rate has surged to 6.9%, the highest in 8 years outside the pandemic. Alarmingly, youth unemployment is more than double that. And now the OECD is warning that Trump's trade war will cost Canada even more jobs this year. Mr. Speaker, Canadians are worried about their futures. What immediate steps will this government take to bring the jobless rate down and protect Canadian workers who will be hurt by Donald Trump's tariffs?
The best part is that we don't have to listen to Jagmeet Singh. That's great.
The Honourable Minister for Jobs and Families and Minister responsible for the Federal Economic Development Agency for Northern Ontario.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's an honor to rise and represent Thunder Bay Superior North for a fourth term in this House of Commons. This government is very focused on protecting workers and in making sure that youth and indeed workers of all ages have the skills and abilities to thrive as our economy transitions. I will work closely with my partners, indeed members across this House, to make sure that all Canadians have an opportunity to thrive as we see economic change.
And that completes our very first question period of the 45th.
No green. The NDP get one question.
I wish to draw the attention of members to the presence in the gallery of the Honourable.
Nope, we did that once. I did not see that coming. We're not doing it again. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the first question period of the new season. It's weird. It's going to take some getting used to. It's very, very, very bizarre. New faces, same spaces, and it's just absolutely weird. Ick, yuck, whatever you want to call it. Mark Carney has already told people, by removing the Wednesday tradition that Trudeau implemented of Leader versus Leader Day, that he's not really going to be appearing in question period very often. And I can't blame him, because after seeing his appearance today, he's not ready for it. He's not a debater. He has no interest in that. He just wants to do his job and hide from the cameras as much as possible. We've all known this. Does this mean that Canada's going to be better and fixed? I don't know. I'm on team things being good and done for Canada. That's my goal. I'm not married to a party. I think that if something good happens that Carney does, then I'll be very objective and say something good happened and it was Carney who did it. I have no problem saying that. But until that happens, we're going to be criticizing him and the Liberals and the government for that matter. So Hope you join me on another live stream of Question Period. If you haven't yet already, I'd like to encourage you guys to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you come back and tune in tomorrow for tomorrow's Question Period. We don't know if Mark Carney is going to be there, but what we do know is that I will be there and a lot of people from the community will be joining back in the chat, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Even though it's a new season, even though it feels like the wind has been taken right out of our sails, so to speak, we're still here together. We still got each other, right? Just like in High School Musical, we're all in this together. Anyways, let's end it on that note. But I do got to pay the bills, ladies and gentlemen. So here we go. To conclude the live stream, brought to you by today's sponsor. This video is brought to you by today's sponsor, Private Internet Access. If you're fed up with government censorship specifically around the news, then boy oh boy do I have the solution for you. Private Internet Access is my go-to VPN. It's a way of cloaking yourself and shielding yourself online so that you can browse the internet anonymously. Not only does it unlock censored news here in Canada, but it's also a way to get content from other streaming platforms such as Disney+, Hulu, even Netflix. The best part is you can use it from unlimited amount of devices. One subscription protects unlimited amount of devices at the same time. You can also change your IP address to more than 91 countries around the world. Now that Parliament has resumed, you're gonna start to see a massive uptick in the Canadian news cycle, especially with the debates. Once Pierre Poilievre wins his by-election, he's gonna be back to debating Mark Carney, and it would be a real shame if you just weren't able to access that news because of this dictatorship government. If you use my link down below in the description or the pinned comment below, you'll get yourself 83% off Private Internet Access today. Alternatively, you can scan the QR code on the screen. Thank you, Private Internet Access, for sponsoring today's video.